In Paris, Kate Middleton stepped out in Dior, and with one breathtaking moment, she sent shockwaves through the royal world. Wearing a pale pink Dior ensemble designed by Maria Grazia Chiuri, Princess Kate didn't just make a fashion statement. She reignited a quiet rivalry and stirred whispers of royal power plays. Adorned with Princess Diana's treasured earrings and Queen Elizabeth's iconic pearl necklace, her appearance at the Macron state visit wasn't merely diplomatic. It was symbolic, calculated, and, to some, deeply provocative. But why has this single outfit triggered such intense reactions around the globe? Is this Kate's boldest move yet to cement her status as Diana's true successor? And where does this leave Meghan Markle in the royal narrative? Stay tuned as we unravel the hidden meanings behind this unforgettable Paris moment and what it reveals about the modern monarchy. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The world watched in awe as the cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing a moment that felt almost surreal. On the sunlit steps of the Élysée Palace in Paris, Kate Middleton emerged with an air of quiet authority, her pale pink Dior ensemble flowing elegantly in the soft breeze. The state visit to France had already been a topic of high anticipation, but no one could have predicted how a single choice, one subtle, deliberate act, would reignite the simmering tensions between two of the most talked-about women in modern royal history. Hanging delicately from Kate's ears were a pair of earrings instantly recognized by millions, Princess Diana's most treasured pearl and diamond drops. For royal watchers, it was a symbolic gesture of continuity and grace. But for Meghan Markle, thousands of miles away in Montecito, California, it was something else entirely. Insiders whisper of fury, frustration, and an all-too-familiar sense of betrayal coursing through Meghan's veins as she scrolled through the images on her phone. The woman once heralded as a fresh face in the monarchy had long envisioned herself as Diana's natural successor, an idea fueled by her own words during interviews and Netflix specials. But here was Kate, stepping confidently into a role Meghan had perhaps privately imagined for herself, wearing not only Christian Dior, a fashion house Meghan had aligned herself with, but also Diana's earrings. Pieces imbued with immeasurable sentimental and historical weight. The public could not get enough of the photographs. Kate's soft smile, her poised hands gloved in ivory, the pearl necklace, borrowed from Queen Elizabeth's collection, resting perfectly on her collarbone. Commentators praised the Princess of Wales for her ability to embody the perfect balance of tradition and modernity. Fashion critics lauded her Dior look as a masterclass in diplomatic dressing. But beneath the glamorous headlines, a deeper story began to unravel, a tale of rivalry, legacy, and the battle for Diana's memory that continues to split the House of Windsor in two. For Meghan, Diana has always been more than just Harry's mother. Diana represented defiance against a system Meghan herself came to loathe, a beacon of compassion and glamour that Meghan sought to emulate. In interviews, Meghan spoke passionately about her connection to Diana's story, drawing parallels between their struggles with relentless media scrutiny and feelings of isolation within the firm. Yet Meghan's aspirations of becoming Diana's spiritual heir were not merely symbolic, they were also tangible. According to reports, Meghan had expressed interest in wearing certain pieces from Diana's jewelry collection, hoping to channel the same effortless elegance that made Diana so beloved worldwide. But as events unfolded after Megxit, those hopes seemed to fade. While Meghan and Harry retained access to some of Diana's pieces, insiders alleged that tensions brewed over the distribution of her jewelry, much of which remained with William and Kate. Kate, who had known Diana only through William's stories and the public memory, had received many of her iconic heirlooms, including her famous sapphire engagement ring. To see Kate now, standing under the Parisian sun, adorned with yet another of Diana's prized possessions, may have felt like a public reminder to Meghan that she was no longer part of the inner royal circle, that the crown, and all that came with it, now rested squarely on Kate's shoulders. And then there was the choice of Dior. This was not Kate's usual style. For years, she had favored British designers such as Alexander McQueen and Jenny Packham, her wardrobe a reflection of her loyalty to British fashion houses. But here, on one of the most high-profile state visits in recent history, Kate chose Dior, a label with which Meghan has often been associated. It was a sartorial statement that spoke volumes without a single word uttered. Was it mere coincidence? Or was it, as some royal watchers speculate, a quiet, calculated move to assert dominance over her sister-in-law in a rivalry that has been anything but subtle? Back in California, Meghan's circle allegedly sprang into damage control mode as social media erupted with comparisons between the two women. Pro-Sussex commentators argued that Meghan had been the first royal to embrace Dior on such a scale, suggesting Kate's choice was a deliberate attempt to overshadow Meghan's influence in the fashion world. Others noted Meghan's absence from any recent high-profile royal engagements, fueling speculation about her emotional state and relationship with Harry, who has largely remained silent amidst the ongoing tensions. This single event, the France state visit, became more than just a diplomatic meeting between nations. It evolved into a defining moment in the ongoing narrative of the modern monarchy. In Kate's confident step and Meghan's alleged seething rage, one could see the clash of two distinct visions for what it means to be a modern royal. For Kate, it is about honoring tradition while subtly redefining it in her own image. For Meghan, it has always been about breaking the mold entirely, carving out her own space in a world that often feels rigid and unforgiving. But at the center of it all lies the shadow of Diana, whose life and legacy continue to loom large over both women. The jewelry she once wore with such grace has become a symbol of power, influence, and belonging within the royal family, a family that Meghan once tried to make her own but ultimately walked away from. As Kate stepped into the spotlight that day in Paris, she did so carrying not only the expectations of a nation but also the unspoken weight of history, rivalry, and an inheritance that no diamond could ever truly encapsulate. The question remains, was this moment simply a beautiful coincidence, or was it a carefully orchestrated message from Kate to Meghan, a signal that the future of the monarchy belongs firmly in her hands? And what does Meghan's reaction, allegedly a mix of anger and heartbreak, reveal about the deep scars left behind in her royal exit? As we peel back the layers of this unfolding drama, we'll explore how one pair of earrings has reignited a war of legacies, how fashion became the battlefield, and why this latest clash could change the dynamics of the royal family forever. The warm spring air in Paris seemed to hum with anticipation as the grand black cars glided silently through the iron gates of the Élysée Palace. Crowds of onlookers had gathered, their phones raised high to capture every detail of what promised to be a landmark event. The French president, Emmanuel Macron, and his wife Brigitte stood ready on the elegant steps, smiling warmly as they prepared to welcome Britain's Prince and Princess of Wales on an official state visit. Yet as the car door opened and Kate Middleton stepped out, it was clear this moment would be remembered not just for diplomacy but for the extraordinary symbolism it carried. The Princess of Wales emerged dressed in a vision of understated sophistication. Her pale pink Dior suit, composed of the 30 Montaigne Rose des Vents bar jacket and a perfectly tailored skirt, seemed almost to shimmer in the sunlight. The ensemble was a deliberate choice from Dior's 2024 collection, created by Maria Grazia Chigieri, the brand's first female artistic director. The piece itself was inspired by Christian Dior's original 1947 New Look silhouette, a design that revolutionized women's fashion in the post-war era. The soft color and architectural lines of Kate's outfit embodied both strength and femininity, reflecting a princess stepping confidently into her role as the future queen consort. Yet it was not only the dress that caught the world's attention. As Kate leaned forward to greet Brigitte Macron with the customary Parisian double kiss, a subtle glint from her ears drew gasps from the crowd. Dangling there, as if plucked from history, were Princess Diana's most treasured pearl and diamond drop earrings. The delicate yet unmistakable pieces swayed gently with each movement, their elegance a quiet reminder of the late Princess of Wales, Kate's mother-in-law, whom she never had the chance to meet. Adding to the ensemble was a pearl choker from Queen Elizabeth II's collection, further anchoring Kate's look in royal tradition. For royal observers, this was no ordinary fashion statement. It was a moment layered with meaning. Kate's choice to wear Dior, a brand Meghan Markle had previously championed, and her decision to accessorize with Diana's earrings created an image that many interpreted as both a tribute and a message. To some, Kate was simply honoring two of the monarchy's most influential women. To others, it felt like a subtle assertion of her place within the royal hierarchy, especially given Meghan's long-standing fascination with Diana's legacy. As Kate and William ascended the steps of the palace, the cameras clicked in a near-unbroken chorus, capturing every angle for the waiting press. French and British media alike erupted with praise for Kate's appearance. An icon in Paris, declared Le Figaro, while the Daily Telegraph described her as the embodiment of regal elegance. Fashion experts weighed in, noting the historical significance of Dior in Paris and how Kate's outfit bridged British tradition with French couture artistry. This was a diplomatic engagement carefully choreographed down to the last detail, but it was Kate's ability to elevate it into a moment of cultural resonance that left the strongest impression. For years, she had carefully cultivated a wardrobe that reflected loyalty to British designers. But this choice, her first time wearing Dior on such a prominent stage, signaled a bold evolution in her public image. Some speculated that her collaboration with Dior was a gesture of respect for French artistry. Others wondered if it was also a strategic move to assert her global relevance as the future queen, particularly in the wake of Harry and Meghan's growing media empire in the United States. Yet behind the admiring headlines and fashion analyses lay a deeper undercurrent. Meghan Markle had long held ties with Dior, wearing the label during high-profile appearances, including her first outing after stepping back from royal duties. For her, Dior represented more than luxury. It was a brand synonymous with independence, modernity, and power. To see Kate now draped in Dior, on one of the most visible stages in Europe, felt to some like an intentional reclaiming of space Meghan had sought to occupy. Adding further intrigue was the choice of Diana's earrings. These were not just decorative accessories, they were intimate reminders of a woman whose presence still haunts the corridors of Buckingham Palace. Princess Diana had worn those earrings during some of her most photographed moments, in their appearance in Paris, where Diana tragically lost her life in 1997, carried an emotional resonance few could ignore. For Kate, it was a chance to pay homage to her late mother-in-law's enduring legacy. For Meghan, watching from afar, it may have stirred emotions of loss, exclusion, and perhaps even resentment. Back in Paris, the state visit unfolded with all the ceremonial grandeur expected of such an occasion. The Welsh couple met with President Macron and his wife in private before joining them for a luncheon attended by key dignitaries. Kate's poise remained unshaken throughout, her Dior ensemble and Diana's jewelry sparking endless conversations on social media and news channels worldwide. As evening descended, Kate changed into a floor-length gown for the state dinner, a glittering emerald green dress by Jenny Packham, paired with the lover's knot tiara, another of Diana's iconic pieces. Once again, the symbolism was unmistakable. This was not merely a princess playing dress-up. This was a future queen staking her claim in history, subtly reinforcing her connection to Diana and Elizabeth alike. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the internet lit up with debates. Meghan's supporters argued that Kate's Dior debut and use of Diana's jewelry were deliberate provocations. It's like she's trying to erase Meghan from the narrative, one commentator posted on X, formerly Twitter. Others saw it differently, praising Kate for her consistency in representing royal tradition without fanfare or controversy. What made this moment so powerful and so contentious was not just the clothing or jewelry. It was the unspoken narrative unfolding behind the smiles and handshakes. A narrative of rivalry, legacy, and the fight for Diana's memory in a royal family still scarred by past divisions. The images from Paris will endure not only in fashion magazines but in the annals of royal history as a moment when one woman's elegance spoke louder than words. Yet for Meghan Markle, they may have reopened wounds that had barely begun to heal. This was more than a state visit. It was the stage for an invisible battle, one fought not with swords or speeches but with silks, pearls, and quiet symbolism. And though Kate appeared serene and untouchable in the Parisian sun, the storm her appearance unleashed would rage far beyond the gilded walls of the Élysée Palace. Long before they graced Kate Middleton's ears at the France state visit, Princess Diana's pearl and diamond drop earrings had already secured their place in royal history. To the casual observer, they might have seemed like just another pair of exquisite jewels from the seemingly endless royal vault. But for those who understood the intricacies of royal symbolism, these earrings carried a weight far heavier than their delicate construction suggested. They weren't just jewelry, they were relics of a legacy, pieces imbued with memory, heartbreak, and power. Princess Diana had first worn the earrings in the mid-1980s, during the height of her reign as the world's most photographed woman. Crafted with South Sea pearls and brilliant cut diamonds, the earrings were both understated and striking, perfectly complementing Diana's effortless glamour. Photographs of her in the earrings tell a story all on their own. Diana at state banquets, charity galas, and diplomatic tours, their gentle sway catching the light as she moved with grace through crowds who adored her. But as with so many things tied to Diana's life, these earrings came to represent more than beauty. They became a symbol of her resilience in the face of relentless public scrutiny and personal turmoil. Diana often used fashion and jewelry as tools of communication, an unspoken language to express emotions the palace would never allow her to voice publicly. On nights when she needed to project confidence, she would often choose bold pieces from her collection. The pearl drops, however, were different. These were the ones she favored for occasions that required diplomacy and subtlety. Perhaps that was why their reappearance decades later, on Kate Middleton, carried such significance. For royal watchers, it felt like a passing of the torch, a sign that Kate had inherited not only Diana's jewels but also her role as the monarchy's elegant, empathetic face to the world. But for Meghan Markle, this symbolic transfer of Diana's legacy may have stung in ways few could fully understand. The question of Diana's jewelry had been a point of contention even before Meghan entered the royal scene. Following Diana's tragic death in Paris in 1997, her sons William and Harry were given the opportunity to choose pieces from her collection to keep as personal mementos. According to reports, William initially selected his mother's gold Cartier watch while Harry chose the sapphire engagement ring that later became famous worldwide. Years later, in a moment of brotherly generosity, Harry reportedly offered the ring to William so he could propose to Kate with it. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about their bond at the time, a bond that has since fractured beyond recognition. But not all of Diana's jewels were divided between the brothers. Many remained in the possession of the crown, part of a collection considered on loan to working royals as needed. Others were stored securely in the royal vault, to be worn sparingly on significant occasions. Over time, Kate became the primary recipient of Diana's most iconic pieces, including the lover's knot tiara and these pearl drop earrings. For Meghan, stepping into the royal family as Harry's wife came with the hope, and perhaps the expectation, that she, too, would have access to some of Diana's collection. After all, Diana was not only Harry's mother but also the figure Meghan herself had admired long before meeting her prince. In interviews, Meghan spoke about how she had watched Diana's humanitarian work as a young woman and felt a kinship with her struggles in the public eye. However, insiders have long whispered that Meghan's attempts to integrate into the family's traditions met resistance at every turn. According to palace sources, tensions surfaced over which pieces of Diana's jewelry Meghan could wear. While she did appear in some of Diana's items during her time as a senior royal, including an aquamarine ring at her wedding reception, her access to the collection was reportedly limited. This restriction was not just about protocol. Behind the scenes, there were whispers that William and Harry's relationship was beginning to fray, making the sharing of sentimental heirlooms an increasingly delicate issue. As Meghan and Harry prepared to step back from their royal duties in 2020, those tensions reportedly deepened. Watching Kate emerge in Paris wearing Diana's pearl drops and a Dior ensemble, both elements with strong ties to Meghan, must have felt, to Meghan, like the culmination of a long and painful exclusion. The earrings themselves were now more than accessories. They were a symbol of Meghan's estrangement from the family she once hoped to embrace. Meanwhile, Kate's decision to wear the earrings in Paris carried its own layers of meaning. To many, it was a touching tribute to Diana, especially poignant given the location. Paris had been the site of Diana's untimely death, a tragedy that still cast a shadow over the monarchy. By bringing Diana's jewelry back to the city in such a public and celebratory context, Kate seemed to reclaim the narrative, transforming a place of grief into one of continuity and hope. Royal commentators noted the deliberate nature of Kate's choices. This was not accidental, one biographer observed. Kate knows the power of these pieces and the stories they tell. In wearing Diana's earrings in Paris, she was sending a message about her place in the royal family and her role as the keeper of its legacy. But that interpretation only fueled the fire among Meghan's supporters, many of whom took to social media to express their outrage. "Those earrings should have been Meghan's," one fan tweeted. "She's Diana's true spiritual heir, not Kate." Others argued that Meghan had been sidelined unfairly, her attempts to honor Diana dismissed because of palace politics and personal animosities. The debate raged for days, reflecting the larger battle over who has the right to embody Diana's memory. For Meghan, the fight has always been uphill. Her critics accuse her of using Diana's image to bolster her own narrative of victimhood, while her defenders insist that she, more than anyone, understands the pressures Diana faced. And yet, the earrings remain silent witnesses to all of this turmoil. Their diamonds and pearls glisten just as they did in Diana's time, impervious to the emotions and conflicts swirling around them. But for Kate and Meghan, their significance could not be more profound. The story of Diana's treasured earrings is not just about fashion or jewelry. It is about love, loss, inheritance, and the unspoken competition between two women bound together by circumstance and a single, tragic figure whose shadow still looms large. In the next chapter, we will explore Meghan Markle's alleged reaction to Kate's Paris appearance, an emotional cocktail of anger, sadness, and determination, and how it reveals the fault lines that continue to fracture the House of Windsor. As the sun set over Montecito's golden hills, Meghan Markle was said to be scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the screen. The photos had just begun flooding in from Paris, each one seemingly more striking than the last. Kate Middleton, flawless in pale pink Dior, Diana's pearl and diamond earrings glistening like quiet weapons of history. To the outside world, the images spoke of grace and continuity, a princess stepping into her destined role with poise. But for Meghan, those same images allegedly felt like a dagger to the heart. Insiders close to Meghan and Harry claim that her initial reaction was one of stunned silence, followed by a wave of emotions she struggled to conceal even from those in her inner circle. Meghan has always prided herself on her ability to control her image, to stay composed in public no matter the storm raging around her. But this time, behind the walls of her Montecito mansion, the composure reportedly cracked. According to sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, Meghan's voice grew tight as she stared at her phone. Of course, she wore them there. Meghan is said to have muttered under her breath, the words carrying a mixture of disbelief and bitterness. For her, Kate's appearance in Paris wasn't just another diplomatic engagement. It was, in Meghan's eyes, a calculated move designed to remind the world who truly held Diana's legacy. The tension in the room was palpable, the silence broken only by the occasional ping of another news alert or social media notification. Meghan had long felt, those close to her say, that her connection to Diana was authentic and deeply personal. From her humanitarian work to her struggle with relentless media attacks, Meghan saw reflections of Diana in her own journey. The late Princess of Wales had been a source of inspiration for Meghan even before she met Harry, a symbol of compassion and resilience in a world that often punishes both. But as she watched Kate command headlines in Paris, lauded for her elegance, praised for her subtle tributes to Diana, Meghan's frustration allegedly reached a boiling point. She felt blindsided, one insider explained. She believes that Kate wearing those earrings, in that place of all places, was no coincidence. Meghan has always thought she and Harry were the ones to carry forward Diana's torch, not William and Kate. Seeing Kate step into that role so effortlessly has been deeply painful for her. This isn't the first time Meghan's emotions have reportedly flared over Diana's jewelry. Palisades have previously hinted at quiet tensions during Meghan's time as a working royal, particularly around her access to certain heirlooms. Unlike Kate, who had been married to William for nearly a decade before Meghan entered the scene, Meghan's relationship with the royal family was newer and more complicated. While she did wear some of Diana's pieces, most notably the aquamarine cocktail ring at her wedding reception, her access was said to be far more limited. This perceived exclusion, coupled with the icy relationship between Harry and William, only added to Meghan's sense of alienation. According to friends, Meghan often expressed frustration that her gestures to honor Diana were dismissed by the palace or overshadowed by Kate's more traditional tributes. The Paris photos seemed to crystallize all those resentments. Meghan reportedly felt not just excluded but erased, as if her own connection to Diana had been pushed aside in favor of Kate's carefully curated narrative. As the evening wore on, Meghan's frustration allegedly turned to determination. She spoke passionately to Harry about the importance of telling their side of the story, of ensuring that the world understood their bond with Diana and the struggles they'd endured. They're not going to rewrite history, she is said to have told him, her voice firm. Harry, for his part, reportedly listened quietly, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable. Those close to the couple describe Harry as torn, deeply protective of Meghan yet still raw from the rupture with his brother. The Paris visit, with its echoes of Diana and its subtle power plays, had opened old wounds Harry had fought hard to keep closed. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, social media erupted into a frenzy. Fans of the Sussexes expressed outrage at Kate's Paris appearance, accusing her of deliberate provocation. She knew exactly what she was doing, one user posted. This was a move to humiliate Meghan and remind her of her place. Pro-Cambridge supporters fired back, praising Kate for her grace under pressure and dismissing the accusations as baseless. For Meghan, the online battle only deepened her sense of urgency. According to sources, she began brainstorming ways to reassert her narrative, to remind the public of her unique bond with Diana. There was talk of releasing never-before-seen photos, perhaps sharing more anecdotes in future interviews or documentaries. Meghan was determined, the insiders said, not to let her voice be silenced. The question now was whether this latest flare-up would push Meghan and Harry further into the public eye or prompt them to retreat deeper into their private world. In Montecito, the couple had built a fortress of sorts, both literal and emotional, shielding themselves from the relentless glare of royal life. But moments like this, charged with history, symbolism, and unspoken rivalries, had a way of breaching even the most carefully constructed walls. To those on the outside, the Paris visit might have seemed like a flawless diplomatic success, an elegant princess representing her nation with dignity. But to Meghan Markle, it was a painful reminder of battles lost and wounds that may never fully heal. As the night drew to a close and the Montecito estate fell silent, Meghan reportedly stared once more at the photos on her screen. Kate, serene and composed, Diana's earrings catching the light. The image seemed to speak 1,000 unspoken words. "They'll never let me forget," Meghan is said to have whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else. And in that moment, the seeds of a new chapter in the royal saga were quietly sown. One that promised more revelations, more conflict, and perhaps, one day, a reckoning. From the moment Meghan Markle stepped into the royal sphere, comparisons to Princess Diana seemed inevitable. The parallels were striking: two women who married into an ancient institution, both outsiders to the world of aristocratic privilege, both grappling with a media circus that often seemed intent on devouring them whole. Meghan herself leaned into the connection during her bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey, describing her sense of isolation within the royal family in a way that echoed Diana's own confessions decades earlier. But as much as Meghan saw herself as Diana's natural spiritual heir, the reality within the House of Windsor was far more complicated. For William and Kate, Diana's memory had always been sacred ground. She wasn't just an icon or a tragic figure, she was William's mother, someone whose death had left a scar on his soul that even now, years later, had not fully healed. As William grew older, he carried with him not just her bloodline but also the burden of her legacy. It was no surprise, then, that he sought to honor her memory in ways that felt controlled, dignified, and consistent with his vision for the monarchy. Kate Middleton, as William's wife, stepped carefully into that space. In her early years as Duchess of Cambridge, she made a point of wearing Diana's jewels sparingly, often on significant occasions where the symbolism would not be lost. When she wore Diana's sapphire engagement ring for the first time, it became a global sensation, a symbol of continuity that tied her firmly to her late mother-in-law's enduring legend. Over time, Kate inherited more of Diana's collection, including the pearl and diamond drop earrings and the famous lover's knot tiara. To many royal watchers, this quiet stewardship of Diana's legacy cemented Kate's place as the woman carrying forward her spirit. But Meghan's arrival disrupted that delicate balance. She was bold, outspoken, and unafraid to challenge the norms of royal life, qualities that reminded many of Diana at her most rebellious. Meghan's humanitarian work, her speeches about women's empowerment, and her public struggles with the British tabloids seemed to mirror Diana's own trajectory. To her supporters, Meghan wasn't just following in Diana's footsteps, she was continuing the work Diana had started, using her platform to shine a light on issues the monarchy often avoided. Yet within palace walls, whispers began to emerge. Some insiders suggested that Meghan's attempts to align herself with Diana felt contrived, even opportunistic. Unlike Kate, who had spent years quietly earning her place in the royal family, Meghan's rapid rise and dramatic exit left a trail of resentment. For William, whose memories of Diana were still raw, Meghan's narrative may have felt like a distortion of the truth. The jewelry became the battlefield. After Diana's death, her sons were allowed to choose keepsakes from her collection. As the story goes, Harry selected his mother's sapphire engagement ring, but later gave it to William so he could propose to Kate. In exchange, Harry reportedly kept Diana's Cartier watch, a piece Meghan has been seen wearing on several occasions. While Meghan did have access to some of Diana's jewelry, most notably an aquamarine cocktail ring she wore to her wedding reception, her use of these heirlooms was limited. Kate, on the other hand, became the primary custodian of Diana's most iconic pieces. This division of treasures seemed to mirror the brothers' diverging paths, William as the heir, Kate as the future queen, and Harry and Meghan as the self-exiled royals trying to build a life outside the monarchy. Meghan's frustration over the jewelry was no secret among palace staff. One former aide recalled a tense moment during preparations for an official engagement when Meghan expressed her disappointment at being unable to wear certain pieces from Diana's collection. She felt she had every right to access them, the aide said. After all, she was married to Diana's son. But the reality was, those decisions weren't entirely Harry's to make. The jewelry belonged to the crown, and there were protocols about who could wear what. For Meghan, the restrictions felt like a deliberate snub. In her mind, she and Harry were the true heirs to Diana's legacy, the couple willing to challenge outdated traditions and use their platform to advocate for real change. Seeing Kate, reserved, traditional, and often silent, lauded as the perfect modern royal only added salt to the wound. Then came Paris. Kate's appearance at the France state visit, wearing Dior and Diana's pearl drop earrings, seemed to Meghan's supporters like the ultimate power play. The choice of Dior was particularly loaded. Meghan had been closely associated with the brand, wearing it during high-profile appearances and even rumored to be in talks for a collaboration at one point. Kate's sudden embrace of Dior, combined with her use of Diana's jewels, felt to many like a statement. The legacy is ours. Online, the debate raged. Kate is the future queen, one royal commentator wrote. It's only natural that she inherits Diana's mantle. Others pushed back. Meghan is the one carrying forward Diana's fight against a cruel and outdated system. Kate is just playing dress-up. Amidst the noise, one thing became clear. Diana's memory had become a proxy for a much larger battle, not just between two women, but between two visions of what the monarchy should be. For William and Kate, the legacy was about stability, duty, and quiet service. For Harry and Meghan, it was about breaking free from constraints and using their voices to challenge injustice. Both sides claimed to honor Diana, but their interpretations of her spirit were worlds apart. This battle for Diana's legacy has left scars on both couples. For William, it has deepened the rift with his brother, making reconciliation seem more unlikely with each passing year. For Meghan, it has been a source of pain and resentment, a constant reminder of her failed attempt to carve out a place for herself within the royal family. As the dust settled after the Paris visit, one thing was certain: the fight for Diana's memory was far from over. Every public appearance, every piece of jewelry, every carefully curated outfit would continue to be scrutinized for hidden messages and unspoken rivalries. And in the middle of it all lies the question no one dares to ask out loud. Can two women ever share the legacy of one of the most beloved figures in modern history? In the next chapter, we will explore how fashion became the ultimate weapon in this ongoing royal war, with Kate and Meghan using their wardrobes to send powerful messages, sometimes subtle, sometimes impossible to ignore. For centuries, the British royal family has relied on the quiet power of symbolism to speak louder than words. From tiaras that once adorned the heads of queens to brooches pinned carefully on lapels during moments of national importance, clothing and accessories have always been tools of subtle communication. But in the modern era, when images travel faster than any speech and the court of public opinion thrives on viral snapshots, fashion has evolved into a battlefield all its own. And at the center of this contemporary style war stand Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle, two women whose choices have come to embody vastly different approaches to royal life and influence. When Meghan Markle first entered the royal family, she brought with her a style that felt fresh, modern, and distinctly global. Gone were the traditional British brands that Kate so often favored. In their place were sleek silhouettes from Da Vinci, crisp lines from Carolina Herrera, and bold statements from Dior. Meghan's fashion was international, reflecting her own identity as an American actress stepping into a centuries-old institution. Her wardrobe choices seemed to signal that she was not here to simply blend in. She was here to redefine what it meant to be a duchess in the 21st century. One of Meghan's most memorable fashion moments came during her first royal tour with Prince Harry in 2018. As she stepped off the plane in Australia, dressed in a simple white sheath dress from Karen G, her outfit sold out online within hours. This became known as the Meghan effect, a phenomenon where anything she wore turned into an instant bestseller. It was a power she wielded confidently, understanding how to use fashion to connect with a younger, more diverse audience who saw in her a break from tradition. But Meghan's fashion choices also attracted criticism. British tabloids accused her of being too Hollywood, too expensive, too unwilling to embrace British designers. One particularly biting headline dubbed her the designer duchess, contrasting her high-fashion outfits with Kate's more modest, often recycled looks. The media narrative was clear. Meghan was the outsider who didn't play by the rules. Kate, by contrast, had spent years perfecting a wardrobe that felt safe, conservative, and unthreatening. Her loyalty to British brands like Alexander McQueen, Jenny Packham, and Catherine Walker earned her respect among royal traditionalists. She was praised for re-wearing outfits, a deliberate move in an era of economic uncertainty that endeared her to the British public. But while Kate's style may have seemed understated, it was anything but accidental. Every hemline, every fabric choice was carefully calculated to send a message about her role as the future queen consort. Dignified, approachable, and deeply rooted in British heritage. Over time, however, Kate's fashion began to evolve. As Meghan brought a wave of modern glamour to royal engagements, Kate's team took note. She started to experiment more with bold colors, sleeker silhouettes, and even international designers. Some royal watchers saw this as Kate stepping out of her comfort zone, asserting herself as a confident woman in her own right. Others speculated it was a competitive response to Meghan's growing influence. The turning point came when Kate began wearing brands closely associated with Meghan. Dior, in particular, had become one of Meghan's signature labels during her time as a working royal. When Kate stepped out in pale pink Dior during the France state visit, complete with Diana's pearl and diamond earrings, many interpreted it as a subtle but deliberate assertion of dominance. It wasn't just about the clothes. It was about what they represented. Meghan's Dior moments had signaled her independence, her global appeal, her departure from royal convention. Kate's Dior debut, on the other hand, suggested that she could embrace modernity while still maintaining her traditional role. It was as if she was reclaiming the narrative, showing that she, too, could embody elegance and innovation without stepping outside the royal framework. Fashion became the language through which these two women waged their silent war. When Meghan wore a sharp black dress for her first official engagement with Harry, critics labeled it too somber for a royal event. When Kate later wore a black dress to a gala, she was praised for her sophisticated confidence. When Meghan donned trousers for public appearances, she was accused of disrespecting royal protocol. When Kate later embraced tailored pantsuits, she was applauded for her modern approach. To Meghan's supporters, these double standards were infuriating. They saw in Kate's evolving wardrobe a deliberate co-opting of Meghan's style, a quiet erasure of the Duchess who had dared to challenge the status quo. To Kate's defenders, it was evidence of her versatility, her ability to grow into her role without drama or controversy. Social media became the front line of the style war. Fan accounts analyzed every detail of their outfits, from the brands they wore to the way they accessorized. Twitter threads debated whether Kate's choices were tributes or provocations, whether Meghan's designer gowns were statements of empowerment or examples of excess. Every photo, every public appearance became another skirmish in the battle for influence and public perception. Behind the scenes, insiders suggest that both women are acutely aware of the power of their wardrobes. Meghan, they say, has always approached fashion as a form of storytelling, a way to express her values and individuality. Kate, meanwhile, has mastered the art of diplomatic dressing, using fashion to build alliances and project stability. But as the Paris state visit demonstrated, even the smallest choices, a jacket, a pair of earrings, can carry immense weight in this ongoing rivalry. Kate's pale pink Dior ensemble was praised worldwide as a triumph of elegance and tact. For Meghan, watching from afar, it may have felt like yet another reminder that in the eyes of the monarchy, she would never be the one to wear the crown or the jewelry that came with it. The royal family has always understood the power of image. In the era of Instagram and viral news cycles, that power has only intensified. For Kate and Meghan, fashion is no longer just about clothes. It is about legacy, identity, and the unspoken war for the heart of the public. In the next chapter, we'll explore the role of the media in shaping this rivalry. How headlines, paparazzi photos, and online narratives have fanned the flames between the Princess of Wales and the Duchess of Sussex, turning their every move into a global spectacle. The battle between Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle may have played out in palaces and across continents, but it was in the pages of newspapers, glossy magazines, and the endless scroll of social media feeds where the war truly exploded. From the moment Meghan was introduced as Prince Harry's fiancée, the British press drew battle lines that would shape public perception of both women for years to come. Every headline, every photo, every soundbite became part of a sprawling narrative in which Kate and Meghan were cast as opposing forces in a story that seemed less about reality and more about archetypes. For Kate, the press had largely painted her as the perfect future queen, graceful, modest, and unwaveringly loyal to the monarchy. She had spent nearly a decade dating Prince William before their engagement, earning her the affectionate nickname Weighty Katie from tabloids. But even as they poked fun at her patience, the press often treated Kate as a figure of admiration. Her fashion choices were dissected with reverence, her adherence to royal protocols praised as evidence of her suitability for the crown. When she rewore an outfit, she was lauded for her thriftiness and relatability. Meghan, on the other hand, entered royal life as a whirlwind. An American actress, biracial, and divorced, she embodied everything that felt new and unfamiliar to an institution steeped in centuries of tradition. The British press initially welcomed her with excitement, praising her charisma and the modernity she seemed to bring to the House of Windsor. But that honeymoon period was short-lived. Soon, headlines began to shift, and Meghan found herself cast in a very different role. Stories accusing Meghan of being difficult began to surface. Reports claimed she had made Kate cry during a disagreement over bridesmaid dresses, though Meghan later countered in her interview with Oprah that the opposite had happened. Tabloids slammed her for breaking royal protocol, closing her own car door, wearing dark nail polish, or daring to hold Harry's hand in public. Even her avocado toast became a target, with one publication bizarrely linking her preference for the fruit to deforestation and exploitation abroad. The disparity in coverage was stark. When Kate cradled her baby bump, she was described as a glowing mother-to-be. When Meghan did the same, she was accused of being vain and attention-seeking. Kate's morning sickness during pregnancy was met with sympathy. Meghan's struggles with mental health were met with skepticism or outright hostility. Social media amplified these narratives, creating echo chambers where royal watchers dissected every moment of the women's lives. Hashtags like #Megxit and #KateGate trended worldwide, fueled by fervent supporters and detractors on both sides. On Twitter, fan accounts sprang up overnight, some devoted to defending Meghan against what they saw as institutional racism and misogyny, others determined to protect Kate's image as the real princess. For Meghan, the relentless media scrutiny became unbearable. In her tell-all interview with Oprah, she revealed that she had experienced suicidal thoughts during her time as a working royal. "I just didn't want to be alive anymore," she admitted, her voice trembling. Harry, seated beside her, nodded grimly. The couple's decision to step back from royal duties and move to California was framed in the media as a betrayal, a dramatic exit that left the monarchy reeling. Kate, meanwhile, remained largely silent throughout the storm. Her composure only fueled comparisons between the two women. Where Meghan was described as emotional and unpredictable, Kate was depicted as stoic and dutiful. Some saw this as proof of Kate's strength. Others criticized her for not publicly supporting Meghan when tensions within the family became public. The media's role in deepening the rift cannot be overstated. Royal correspondents jockeyed for exclusives, sometimes relying on unnamed palace sources who provided conflicting accounts of the women's relationship. Stories of screaming matches and icy standoffs filled tabloid pages, while glossy magazines debated which duchess had won the battle for public affection. Then there were the photographers. Paparazzi swarmed Meghan and Harry even after their move to California, prompting lawsuits over invasive drone photos taken of their young son, Archie. In contrast, Kate and William maintained a more controlled relationship with the press, often working with select photographers to release carefully curated images of their family. This difference only fueled the perception that Meghan was under siege in a way Kate never had been. Yet, it wasn't just British tabloids driving the narrative. American media played its part as well. Outlets like People magazine and Oprah's own network became platforms for Meghan's defenders, offering her a chance to share her perspective with a sympathetic audience. Meanwhile, British talk shows and newspapers continued to hammer home the narrative of Meghan as the disruptive outsider. The Paris state visit became the latest flashpoint in this media frenzy. Photos of Kate in pale pink Dior, Diana's pearl and diamond earrings glinting in the sunlight, dominated front pages. Royal commentators praised her as the embodiment of Diana's grace, a phrase that rankled Meghan's supporters. On Twitter, debates erupted anew. Was Kate honoring Diana, or was she subtly undermining Meghan by appropriating symbols the Sussexes had long claimed as their own? For Meghan, watching this unfold from Montecito may have felt like déjà vu. The headlines once again painted Kate as the serene queen-in-waiting and Meghan as the outsider looking in. Supporters of the Sussexes rushed to her defense online, but the narrative seemed set. Kate had won the media's heart, and Meghan was left to fight her corner in a battle she could never fully control. The royal family's relationship with the press has always been complicated. They need the media to maintain their relevance, yet they are often at its mercy. For Kate and Meghan, this dynamic has been especially fraught, transforming their personal choices, what they wear, how they smile, even how they hold their children, into global talking points. As the media continues to pit these two women against each other, one question lingers. How much of this rivalry is real, and how much is a creation of an industry that thrives on drama? In the next chapter, we'll delve into the private conflicts behind the scenes, how family tensions over jewelry, protocol, and inheritance have fueled the divisions between the Cambridges and the Sussexes, leaving scars that may never fully heal. Behind the glittering tiaras and carefully orchestrated public appearances lies a reality few outsiders truly grasp. The House of Windsor is a family as much as it is an institution. And like any family, it carries its share of rivalries, resentments, and unspoken wounds. The tensions between Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle are not merely the product of media narratives or public perception. They are rooted in private conflicts that have quietly festered for years, hidden from the cameras, but impossible to ignore. The story begins not in Paris, but in the gilded halls of Kensington Palace years earlier, where two very different women tried, and failed, to find common ground. Meghan arrived into the royal fold with high hopes. She envisioned a partnership, a sisterhood even, with Kate, a united front as the two most prominent women of a new generation of royals. But according to palace insiders, the reality was far more complex. Kate, by that time, was an established member of the family, having spent nearly a decade acclimating to royal life before her marriage to William. Her transition had been slow and deliberate, marked by years of quiet observation and deference to tradition. Meghan, on the other hand, was a woman of action, accustomed to independence, used to taking control of her own narrative, and confident in her ability to make an impact. The cultural clash between the two was immediate. One early point of contention reportedly centered on Diana's jewelry collection. When Harry and Meghan became engaged, Meghan was given access to certain pieces, including Diana's butterfly earrings and a stunning aquamarine cocktail ring she wore to her wedding reception. These tokens felt deeply significant to Meghan, a tangible connection to the mother-in-law she would never meet. But her access to the larger collection was limited, and it didn't take long for whispers to emerge that Meghan felt slighted. The jewelry issue was more symbolic than practical, one former royal staffer explained. It wasn't about the diamonds or pearls themselves. It was about what they represented: inclusion, acceptance, and her place within the family. As Meghan and Harry planned their wedding, tensions reportedly flared over an incident involving a tiara Meghan had hoped to borrow for the ceremony. According to one version of events, Meghan had requested a specific piece from the royal collection, but was told it was unavailable due to conservation concerns. To Meghan, this felt like another subtle rejection. To the palace, it was simply a matter of protocol. Adding to the strain was the now infamous bridesmaid dress fitting for Princess Charlotte. Early reports suggested Meghan had reduced Kate to tears during the preparations. Later, Meghan claimed in her interview with Oprah that the opposite had occurred. It was Kate who made her cry, though she later apologized and sent flowers. Whatever the truth, the incident left a scar on their relationship that would never fully heal. William and Harry's relationship, too, was beginning to show cracks. For years, they had been inseparable, bonded not only by blood but by their shared trauma of losing Diana at such a young age. But Harry's whirlwind romance with Meghan seemed to unsettle William. According to multiple accounts, William expressed concerns about the speed of the relationship, urging his brother to slow down. Harry reportedly bristled at what he saw as interference, interpreting his brother's caution as criticism of Meghan. After Meghan and Harry's marriage, the distance between the couples grew more pronounced. Meghan and Harry moved out of Kensington Palace, setting up their home at Frogmore Cottage. The physical separation mirrored an emotional one, with fewer joint engagements and fewer opportunities for reconciliation. The release of Harry and Meghan's Netflix docuseries added fuel to the fire. In candid interviews, Meghan spoke of feeling unsupported and unprotected by the royal family, while Harry described the toxic dynamic between the firm and the British press. Kate and William, meanwhile, maintained their characteristic silence, but sources suggested they were deeply hurt by the Sussexes' public revelations. By the time Kate stepped onto the steps of the Élysée Palace in Paris, the divide between the two couples had become a chasm. To the outside world, Kate's pale pink Dior and Diana's pearl drop earrings were the picture of elegance. But to Meghan, they may have represented something more painful, a reminder that she was no longer part of the inner royal circle, that the legacy of Diana, one she had hoped to share, now rested firmly in Kate's hands. Meghan's alleged reaction to Kate's Paris appearance was one of frustration mixed with sadness, insiders claimed. She had once envisioned herself as a bridge between the monarchy and a new, more progressive era. Instead, she felt sidelined, her contributions erased in favor of a narrative that cast her as the disruptive outsider and Kate as the dutiful future queen. Harry, caught between his wife and his brother, found himself in an impossible position. He reportedly shares Meghan's belief that the distribution of Diana's jewelry and the ongoing public adulation for Kate over Meghan reflect deeper issues of favoritism within the family. Yet he's also said to feel a lingering loyalty to the institution that shaped his entire life. The private conflicts between these four individuals are not just about jewelry, protocol, or press coverage. They are about identity, belonging, and the weight of history. Diana's ghost hangs over them all, her legacy a mirror in which each sees their own reflection and their own failings. In Paris, as Kate smiled serenely for the cameras, Diana's pearl earrings catching the light, the world saw a symbol of grace and continuity. But in Montecito, Meghan and Harry reportedly saw something else, a painful reminder of battles lost, relationships broken, and a family that may never be whole again. As the story continues to unfold, it raises a haunting question. Can these wounds ever heal? Or will they define a generation of royals forever? In the next chapter, we will turn our focus to the symbolism of Dior itself, how this legendary fashion house became a pawn in the silent chess match between Kate and Meghan, and why its legacy matters in the context of this royal rivalry. In the gilded world of haute couture, few names carry as much weight as Christian Dior. For decades, the French fashion house has been synonymous with elegance, reinvention, and an almost magical ability to capture the cultural zeitgeist. In Paris, where the brand was born, Dior is more than just a name. It is a symbol of timeless sophistication and power. So when Kate Middleton stepped out during the France state visit draped in Dior's pale pink ensemble, it was not merely a sartorial choice. It was a statement, one that resonated far beyond the fashion runways of Paris and into the charged dynamic between her and Meghan Markle. For Meghan, Dior had long been a favored brand, one she wore to some of her most memorable royal and post-royal appearances. In 2019, Meghan appeared at her son Archie's christening in a Dior dress and hat, exuding modern royal elegance. Later, during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in 2022, she was seen in another striking Dior design, a cream-colored coat and matching hat that garnered both praise and criticism. These choices seemed intentional, as though Meghan was aligning herself with the brand's long history of challenging and redefining femininity. Christian Dior's designs had, after all, revolutionized women's fashion in the mid-20th century. With his iconic new look, Dior gave post-war women clothes that were both strong and soft, cinched waists, full skirts, and an air of power veiled in delicate fabrics. For Meghan, wearing Dior seemed to fit her narrative perfectly, a woman breaking barriers, defying expectations, and redefining what it meant to be a modern royal. Kate, on the other hand, had rarely been associated with Dior prior to the Paris state visit. Her style had long leaned toward British designers, with occasional nods to European houses like Chanel or Valentino. So why Dior and why now? The timing and location were too precise to ignore. Kate's pale pink Dior outfit, designed by Maria Grazia Chiuri, the house's first female creative director, signaled more than a fashion evolution. It was a masterstroke of diplomacy and symbolism, positioning Kate as both traditional and forward-thinking. For royal observers, the choice also felt like a quiet assertion of dominance over Meghan. By wearing Dior in Paris, Kate was reclaiming a brand that Meghan had, until now, been most closely linked with. It was as if Kate had stepped into Meghan's territory and made it her own, projecting an image of grace and authority that left little room for comparison. This sartorial decision did not go unnoticed in Montecito. Meghan's supporters were quick to point out the overlap, suggesting that Kate's Dior moment was less about fashion diplomacy and more about overshadowing Meghan's style legacy. On social media, debates erupted over whether Kate's choice was intentional. "She's trying to erase Meghan from the narrative," one commenter insisted. "First the jewelry, now the designers. It's no coincidence." Others saw it differently, viewing Kate's embrace of Dior as a natural evolution of her fashion sense. "She's the future queen," a royal correspondent explained. "She has to play on a global stage now, and Dior is as global as it gets." Yet the symbolism of Dior extends beyond Kate and Meghan's personal rivalry. To wear Dior in Paris is to align oneself with France's cultural and political legacy. It is a gesture of respect and admiration for a nation whose identity is deeply entwined with its couture houses. For Kate, who was representing Britain in a post-Brexit era of fragile European relations, the choice carried diplomatic weight. It spoke of bridges, not barriers, of unity rather than division. But for Meghan, the image of Kate stepping confidently into Dior's designs may have felt like a personal slight. Meghan had used fashion as a way to craft her own identity within the royal machine, a way to stand out, to assert her independence. Seeing Kate embody that same modern elegance, while enjoying the full support of the institution Meghan had once hoped to join, must have stung deeply. The narrative around Dior also reflected broader themes in the royal story: tradition versus reinvention, inclusion versus exclusion, and the power struggles that lurk beneath the surface of public appearances. Fashion is rarely neutral in royal circles. Every choice is scrutinized, interpreted, and, inevitably, politicized. Kate's Dior ensemble, paired with Diana's pearl drop earrings, became a symbol of continuity for some and a provocation for others. To Kate's admirers, it was evidence of her ability to evolve gracefully, embracing global influences while staying true to her role. To Meghan's defenders, it felt like yet another example of the monarchy co-opting Meghan's innovations while denying her the credit. The irony is that both women have used fashion as a language, one that transcends words yet communicates volumes about their identities and intentions. For Meghan, Dior represented a pathway to global relevance outside the rigid confines of British tradition. For Kate, it became a tool for asserting her own relevance, signaling that she, too, could embody modernity without abandoning her future as queen. As the Paris visit faded from headlines, its implications lingered. Meghan and Harry, far from the gilded stages of Europe, continued to build their own narrative in California. But Kate's Dior moment stood as a reminder that the royal family had moved on without them, and that the legacy Meghan once hoped to shape was now firmly in Kate's hands. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the public reactions to Kate's Paris appearance and how fans and critics alike turned social media into a digital battleground for loyalty, legacy, and influence.